Welcome to Real Estate Investing for Professional Men and Women, the podcast that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth. Here's your host, Gary Wilson.
Hello, everyone. This is Gary Wilson, and welcome to the podcast, Real Estate Investing for Professional Men and Women. Welcome aboard. You're probably a fireman, policeman, teacher, chiropractor, dentist, pilot, all groups of people, almost always professional in your field, and often business owner too. So welcome aboard. We do invest honorably and ethically in our areas. It's win-win for everybody. I don't mean that just to look like I'm a Boy Scout. The reality is, though, when you buy the right properties the right way in the right areas, everybody does win. The community wins, the tenants win, you win as the owner. That's the right way to do it. I used to buy all the cheap, crappy stuff because it was cheap. And believe me, I learned from following other successful investors and mentors to actually buy the C minus C, C plus C properties. Okay. So in any case, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. This is on probably 36 different channels now: iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher. Downloaded in almost 30 countries now. So go ahead and subscribe. And also, if you want to be part of the community, remember this: it's not just us investors. We've got literally over 3,000 real estate agents we've trained to work with us. We call them investor agents. They need to be certified. Whenever you invest, make sure you're working with a certified investor agent. And we know who they are, so you can check them out with us. And by the way, you can go to the community site on myinvestmentservices.com and be part of the community with all these investors like you, dentists and engineers, for example, and also the agents serving them correctly the right way. So in any case, without further ado, I want to introduce Pat Walley. Met Pat Walley through a mastermind group, and he has a great service he provides related to credit. I think you're going to be really interested in this subject because we all want to grow. We want to expand our practices. We want to expand our holding. We want to expand both sometimes, and you got to have credit to do that. So Pat's got some really neat ideas and suggestions. So Pat, welcome aboard. Thank you for taking your valuable time to do this. I know you're a busy guy, and I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom with the group here.
Oh man, Gary, sure, anytime. I love what you do, and I really appreciate that as an investor myself that we do actually bring everything up when we help the community, we help the seller, the new buyer, and our business, and I really believe in what we do, and I think that's great.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, I know many people probably know who you are, but for those who don't, would you mind just painting a picture for us? Just pretend like we just met and give us the background, who's Pat Walley, where you are, and how you got to where you are now. And, sometimes there's some good juicy nuggets in there too, if you don't mind sharing, that is.
Well, I'll try and not keep it too juicy. I mean, I've got a pretty diversified background. I grew up in a military family, went into the military myself, went in the nuclear power field, learned a lot about how to work really hard and get the paycheck. Mm-hmm. Got exposed to entrepreneurship early on, like in my 20s, didn't really get a hold of it, but I had some dabblings, failed a lot, succeeded a little, and ended up in my 40s getting involved in real estate investing. Now, in between that time, between my 20s and 40s, I actually consulted with hundreds of businesses across the United States, installing computer software, training them on their point of sale system, accounting. And one of the things that I saw pretty consistently was the difference between the people that worked for the business owner and the business owner, what their lifestyles were. And we'll probably get into that a little bit. And but I never learned how to take care of my credit. So that's one of the things that we'll talk about as well. And now we own a business and we are helping entrepreneurs build their business credit that's separate from their personal credit. And at the same time, if they do have bruised personal credit, we help them recover that and restore that so they can have a lifestyle.
Awesome. Well, that's an awesome service you provide. I know in the past, one of the things I learned is when I had a business, I now could borrow money two different ways, me personally and the business also. And in the case of people who own their own practices, I mean, in the state of California, and I don't know if this is just true when I was there, a dentist coming out of dental school in California was like automatically qualified for like $1 million line of credit to start their practice. I'm like, wow, that's pretty awesome stuff. So you can borrow against your business folks to buy other business entities. You really can't buy like a home in your own name that way, but you can set up an LLC, buy another little strip mall area where you rent out other places to other providers, in the name of a business that it indicates lots of neat things there. But if you wouldn't mind, talk a little bit about the what. So people who are new to this, kind of give them a real good idea of what that is. What does that mean, borrowing like from your business as opposed to borrowing from yourself? What does it look like? What do you do? What's the steps? All the stuff that people are curious about knowing,
Sure. And Gary, I had a long time as a professional in the IT industry. Still do some work in that field. And what I learned is I got really good at what I did, but I didn't understand really how to manage business. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of professionals are in that same boat. They go to school and they get trained in whatever field they're in, and learn how to do their field, their practice, their master of their craft. But we rarely get taught how to manage the business. And one of the key elements, and you mentioned it, is have a separate business entity. I'll just give you like three main things that you need to do to get business credit. The main thing is to separate your business from your personal. A lot of businesses run their business off their Social Security number. Mm-hmm. And what we specialize in is helping you to separate your business and personal credit. You have a business credit, whether you know it or not. You're on Dun & Bradstreet, you're on Equifax and Experian as a business if you're a sole proprietor. So the key thing is to get a business entity set up right away. Get separated, get an EIN, and then start establishing a business credit profile. It's really actually pretty easy to do. It takes about 90 days to 6 months, depending on where you are. If you're like a doctor or a dentist that has a very lucrative professional future for earning money, then you can really get some big lines of credit set up. And it never touches your Social Security number. That's the key about this. So for anyone that's listening that may have personal credit cards, maybe you've got a large limit on your personal credit cards, but your assets are exposed.
Right.
So that's the what is we really show how businesses can separate their finances as far as credit goes, get that Social Security number off of your business financing.
Yeah, I agree. That's even critical for other reasons too. I mean, separation of liability, just, you protect your personal assets by running your business because it is a business and it needs to be its own entity. The IRS looks at it as its own entity. And I mean, it's the forms, everything. But by the way, I'm just curious, is there a difference when it comes to establishing credit, the ability to borrow and leverage? Is there a difference between the different entities? Like you have simple LLCs, you got an LLC that looks like a partnership, an LLC that looks like an S corp, and you got straight S corps. Have you noticed any difference there? Is it more related to the type of business the person's in as opposed to the entity structure? Like how does that fit in the whole picture? Yeah.
And that's a great question. We get that a lot. The entity structure doesn't matter as long as you have it not as a sole proprietor. Sole proprietor looks just like you. And like you said, when you set up an entity, it's really a separate person, if you will, called your business. And the elements that determine your lendability are how much money do you have in the bank? There's a bank credit score. How much cash flow do you have coming in and out of your business bank account? And then basically, do you pay your bills on time? And then different factors as far as the numbers go determine how much you can actually get approved for. And we work with over 2,000 different lenders. So we put you into a matrix, the numbers into a matrix, the software does its magic, and then you get a list of lenders that will qualify you. And this is so different than like an SBA loan, because you go to a bank, anybody listening, if you go to a bank and you apply for a loan, you're going to use your Social Security number. That's just the way it is. Right. So we have what we call alternative lending.
Awesome. So these providers, the underlying investors, are they institutional, or are they more like private lenders? Is like a combination, could be any number of things, partnerships, things like that?
Combination, people with money. Yeah. I mean, I did some real estate investing, and I got to tell you, the private lending was the best.
Yeah, I did some private lending too. I mean, I've been on both ends of it actually. And one of my very first deals, I used a private lender. I didn't even really know what that meant. I mean, the guy actually was pretty well structured. He had a business structure set up. He actually had a lender's license. He was a commercial lender, and he did do that separately. But privately, he also let money out because he got really good at looking at properties. He could tell if you got a good deal or not, which was really nice because This guy was much more experienced than I was. And my first deal with him, I thought, well, this guy's really coming out, taking pictures, walking through the properties.
Wow.
Pretty in-depth, thorough analysis. But because he was putting his skin in the game, he was protecting himself. I benefit as a result, though, as the consumer. Buying it, in that case, it was a fourplex, and we really need a learning experience, So if you wouldn't mind, let's talk a little bit about timing, because right now we're where we believe we're like at or near the peak of a market. No, we don't really. If we all knew that, we could time things. We can't do that. I mean, the last recession, the big one, and started in late 2007. People were calling for it as early 2000s, 2000, even 2000, 2002. Even Barron's Magazine. I used to go to I was a bank. I did mergers and acquisitions for banks, and I was a bank vice president. And I was such a big nerd. I'd go into the bank's own private library at lunchtime and read and study. Barron's Magazine in the late 90s was predicting the big economic downfall years before anybody else was, if you're anything like me, listening to good advice is helpful and inspiring at the same time. But having a reference guide at your fingertips is invaluable when I sit down to do serious planning. That's why if you go to the website, myinvestorservices.com, at the very top of the page, actually sort of near the middle, you'll see 5 different guides on 5 different aspects of real estate. All these are free, and all of them can help you impact your bottom line. Just check it out. Go to myinvestorservices.com, right smack in the middle, click on any one you want or all 5 if you want. We obviously have the market's always going to be moving up or down. And folks, when you get to be old enough to recognize this, just get used to it. It doesn't, not anything to get upset about. It's just part of the natural business cycle. People always see, you think we're going to go into a recession? I'm like, hell yeah, we are. I just can't tell you when. If people are just ever improve, and I was like, you better believe it's going to improve. It's going to be awesome. But when's it going to happen? Like, I don't know. But relative to that, what have you seen? How does that affect people's ability willingness to lend money and other people's ability to borrow relative to timing and markets? Because I know it baffles people, but I've found that you can always get money. That was what I found,
And that you bring up a very good point, Gary. You can always get money. I wasn't in this business in 2007, but I remember it very, very well. I think most people do. Where were you when the stock market went 890 points down in like 2 hours?
Yeah.
One of the key elements is preparation and strategic planning. So Ray Dalio has a great video on how the economic machine works. There's long-term debt cycles or short-term debt cycles, and there's growth. Growth never stops. It just gets interrupted a little bit by correction. And I believe we're due for a correction just based on the numbers. As a real estate investor, I'm looking forward to that, actually, not because it's going to hurt, but because there's going to be some great opportunities on the bottom end of that.
Right.
But as a business, yes, there's always money available if you look right. If you look terrible on paper, you're not going to get the money. And that's why I'm really pushing right now to prepare, just like insurance. It's better to have it, not need it, than need it, not have it.
Right.
So get your business credit in check now and get yourself what I call irresistible to the lenders, so that when the lending does tighten up, because it will tighten up, but the lenders will still have money.
Yeah.
It's just, if you're not showing the right numbers and the right paper, what it looks like on, if you're in pile B, you go on the trash. We want to keep you in pile A. When they're looking at applications. So,
yeah, I agree. Now, when it comes to preparing, like let's say somebody comes to you, says, okay, Pat, I really want to. I have a few properties. I've got my own business. I want to grow the portfolio. If they came to you today versus 10 years ago, is there anything you do strategically to help place somebody? Depending on where you're on the market, is there any, I know we always want to be good custodians with our credit, but strategically, is there anything that you can think of that worked 10 years ago that's not working now, or vice versa, that may be relative to where we are in the market? Different strategies, I guess, is what I'm looking at.
That's an interesting question. The credit market has changed a little bit, but the same rules pretty much apply. For your personal credit, things have changed a lot. There's more protection for the consumer. We've all seen the Equifax breach,
Mm-hmm.
so it's a different game because of the bad guys out there. They're trying to get into your systems. Um,
Yeah.
and so I would say that the lenders are probably a little more equipped with tools to validate your risk, because really all it is, and you do it with properties just like I do. You do a risk analysis. You go out, you find it, and you do a risk analysis. Is this going to give me a good ROI, or am I going to get burned? The lenders are the same way with the business owners. If you're doing good business for a long term and you have regular deposits and you've got money in the bank and you pay your bills on time, you're going to get the lending. If you don't, you won't. It's really that simple. And I don't think that basics hasn't changed. The tools they use to discover your information has definitely improved. As an IT guy, I can tell you the IT industry and the IT tools are, with AI, artificial intelligence involved now, it's a different level.
Yeah.
They can, any lender, when you give them permission, any lender can find out anything about you. Equifax, Experian, Dun& Bradstreet, they know about you. They know everything about us. And you said a key word, and I believe in this, you got to be a good custodian of your credit, business and personal.
Yeah, I agree. What's interesting is, well, first off, my degree was in computer science from early, 1985, and this was when the microcomputer first came out. We didn't call them PCs, and back then we actually had to code everything. Matter of fact, when we wrote code, and we had a block of granite and a hammer and a chisel. That's how we wrote code.
Yeah, right.
But I love what you said about that. That the business to technology is changing, which is another driving force in any industry. And it really has made things a lot easier, simpler for both sides of the borrowing experience. And it really is really more important for people to be diligent, be on top of your game. I know stuff happens, guys. I mean, people get married and they get divorced and they get a new job and they lose a job and just stuff happens. But no matter what, always, and in lending, one of my jobs obviously was in banking, the mergers acquisitions, and on the lending side we had the 4 C's: cash, collateral, credit, and character. And over time, what I recognize is, as a consumer myself, is over time as I built a portfolio of rentals, they were really more interested in my character. I mean, obviously credit was important, cash was important, collateral was important. But what I had a lender tell me one time, you know what we're really interested in, Gary? Somebody who's building a big portfolio of real estate like you is, we want to know what happens to you, not just in good times, but in the bad times. Do you wave the white flag and jump overboard and run away? Or do you stay on that ship and get that thing in the shore, maybe limping, but you don't throw in the towel? He said, we'll lend you money all day long with you. And you got that kind of a track record. And that really stuck with me, Never hide from people. Don't evade people. If something's going wrong, communicate with your lender from day one. Make them a partner. Make them a partner in your business and in a solution. I'll tell you what to do, So in any case, if you wouldn't mind, if you can think of a case study, maybe an avatar type scenario of clients you work with, or if you have a specific one in person, kind of walk us through the steps involved. What would someone can expect if say a dentist's been in business for 3 years, they're ready to expand, they need business credit, and they just didn't, in the beginning, they just worked for somebody else and they don't know any of this stuff. Like what would be the steps involved and what can they expect? Because I think it's going to help a lot of people get off the bench and realize they can do it too,
Absolutely. I went out and learned this on my own, went through some classes and got some specific training and got very good at it. So number one, I would say that if that's something that you're looking to do, partner with a professional. If that's not your wheelhouse, if your wheelhouse is not going out and learning it yourself and you don't have the time to do that, then find a professional that knows what they're doing and do that. Just like I wouldn't try and do a tooth extraction on my own. I'd go to the dentist and get the professional help. So we're the professionals. We have amazing software that helps put it all in one place, guide you through the step-by-step. And it really is a step-by-step process. It's kind of, Gary, I talk about it like a cookie recipe. Okay, we've all had chocolate chip cookies, unless you're just one of those few people that never eat sugar. But, when there's a Tall House cookie recipe, and if you follow the recipe step by step by step, you're going to get amazing results. Mm-hmm. If you get to the point where you got to put, 2 cups of sugar and you've only got a cup and a half, and you go, salt looks a lot like sugar, I'm going to pour some salt in here. the cookie's not going to turn out the same. And it's the same with setting up your business credit. First thing is and I like what you said about integrity, your character.
Mm-hmm.
There's a credibility check on your business. Is it a real business? Is it an entity or is it a hobby? Dennis that's been in business for 3 years probably has an office, maybe a couple practices going on, employees, all that factors in. And the first step is to set up the business. If you've already done that, then you need to get your business credit monitoring. So you know what's happening in your credit world with your business. And honestly, the next most important step is to find out, to decide as a business, where do you want to grow? How much do you need? Because if you're just shooting at nothing, you're going to hit it, right? So pick a target, find out how much I need. $500,000 because I'm going to expand, build an office. Okay, great. Well, here's the recipe for doing that. And cash in the bank is pretty big. $10,000 is the number that the lenders look at. You know probably a lot of this as the acquisitions and merger. There's a formula. It's $10,000 in the bank. You got to have regular deposits. You have to have been in business for a year or more, and have a business bank account and an entity. Those 5 things are critical. If you have those, you can start setting up trade accounts, and you can start getting some reporting. Businesses start reporting to your credit account just like a personal credit card would. But you can't just go out and apply for a business credit card as a business without some other pieces in place. And we have that formula. But it's really just about those 5 things. About you have to have money in the bank, you have to be in business for more than a year, and you've got to have regular deposits and an entity and a business bank account to start with.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that help?
As far as, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Does that help? Is that kind of what you were looking for?
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. And as far as a lot of people, I'm sure right now listening, they well, how much can I get? And I think that's really more a function of how much income your business is producing and how long you've been in business. Is that roughly the case as far as what somebody would qualify for? Like again, a dentist that has a practice for 3 years, for example. Let's say they're generating 1.2 million a year in gross revenue, and they're keeping maybe 300,000. That's what they keep themselves. That's probably kind of a good ballpark for a lot of this. I don't want you to put yourself on a spot, but like they're gonna be wondering, hey, what can I get? It's always the first question. So
$700 million. No, I don't know. I can tell you this: you'll get a lot more on your business credit than you would ever on personal credit.
Yeah.
It's because because your risk profile is different. You mentioned the 4 C's: cash. Your collateral is the big thing. So if you have an office and you have equipment, et cetera, and accounts receivable, you've got regular patients that are paying you, that all counts as assets. So you can leverage that for your lending profile. And a business that's pulling in, $300,000 a year, I don't know how much they get, but $1 million is not unheard of. I mean, in the business world, $1 million really isn't that much.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
We've got a client that buys skyscrapers, large buildings for real estate, and $1 million wouldn't even begin. There's another couple's for him, but that's what he uses is the lending, and then leverages the assets to get the lending, the financing, and the goal is if you get a good credit profile, you're going to get those financing at much lower rates than you think. Sometimes single digit down to near or at 0%. Sometimes right now. There's a lot of 0% lending going on. It's exciting.
Yeah, I agree. What's interesting is the good thing is, too, guys, is it actually gets easier as you go and grow your business and grow a portfolio of properties. It actually gets easier. The lenders, they get used to you. They know you're a reliable person. You're good credit risk to them. But more importantly, you get to the point you really don't need to borrow as much. So it's like that's just kind of weird dichotomy. Like the less you need to borrow, the more you're going to be able to borrow.
Right.
And I bet, just rough numbers, 90% or more of all the money I've ever borrowed was through my business entities and not me personally. Easily probably 95%. And it actually, every week I get stuff in the mail, and not just the typical postcards, but actual, lenders, offering. It's like me giving them like a letter of intent. I'm getting the same thing in reverse. And I had a lender tell me one time, he said, you know what, it's going to get to the point where you're no longer asking them to go to lunch; they're asking you to go to lunch.
Right.
And so it really does get easier, guys. Hey, I tell you, we're getting close on time here, but I want to ask, as far as like where two parts of the where. So where somebody is, I'm sure most of what you do is U.S. based. We have a lot of Canadian students and clients too, and very similar laws. A lot of Canadians will come to the States to invest. Some the other way, but not so much. But when it comes to where, is it easier for somebody in an area like San Francisco where it's high price, lots of high tech, more money than a place like Dayton, Ohio? Or does that even play into at all? Is it factoring this at all, as far as their ability to borrow and how much they can borrow?
I mean, that's kind of a two-sided coin.
Yeah.
When you're in the Bay Area, San Francisco, San Jose, there's more numbers involved because the prices are higher. So, what $1 million in Columbus, Ohio is not the same as $1 million in San Jose, California.
Yeah.
So that the lenders know this and they play that factor into the lending. So there is a part where it's just the numbers.
Yeah.
So that, if you've got $10 million of acquisitions going on, you're going to be exposed to more lending. You might get less actual physical assets for that, for $10 million in San Jose than you would in Columbus. So right. It's just different. They're like, being from the banking industry, the banks and the lenders have all that stuff dialed in as far as where you are, the economy, the growth, all the economic factors for your area. I'm going to say, yes, it does, but it also depends on, and you alluded to it, the relationship you have with the lenders. And we've got over 2,000 lenders that we have been dealing with for a long time. I've actually got a couple partners that have, over 15 years dealing with some of these lenders. So they know, we know them and they know us. And then we get our customers involved with that. So it makes a lot of difference about how do you show up.
Okay.
It's not where you show up is important, but how you show up is infinitely more important to how well you're going to be able to get that financing.
Right. Yeah. Well, I know in traditional institutional banking, they're so heavily regulated. I mean, people might be saying, well, they won't lend me money here because the big industry just left town and now it's blighted and all this kind of stuff. Whereas a law called redlining, banks can't not lend money in the area just because an industry left town. They have to lend there just like lend anywhere else. But in any case, the private lenders, though, I know it's easier for them because if they're not reselling, they're not selling the loans, they don't have to follow all those crazy FHA rules. But
that's right.
But look, if you don't mind, you mentioned you got all these great partners, 2,000 of them. Let's talk about the where relative to where you're able to serve people. So if someone wanted to work with you, is it like the lower 48 states? You're able to serve people in Alaska and Hawaii too, or what's your reach for people looking? Because I'm going to ask you next how can people get a hold of you and ask you to talk about some of the, I see credit matters in the back there. The book, there's some cool stuff you got there. I recognize you on the right, but where you are you able to serve people in like Maine and Florida too, or if you don't mind, how do you deliver your services? Who's a good candidate for that?
Sure, I'll put on my radio voice for this. We serve all 50 states. I will, you asked me when we started about foreign investors, and I haven't really gotten into that yet.
Okay.
But I will find out and I'll have an answer. I believe we work with Canadian investors and businesses. I'm almost 100% sure we don't really deal with foreign companies. Mm-hmm. When I say that, I mean foreign companies that are registered in a different country. Now, if they've got a business entity in the U.S., then we're good.
Cool. And a lot of them do that. I know people who are still today, they're part of the DACA group. They're came over as infants, and then all of a sudden they grew up here. Now they're caught in all this stuff, and they realize, all we got to do is set up a business entity. Then they can participate more fully in the economy, and they pay taxes and everything just like everybody else. Sure. So I know people personally have done that, and that's great that they have a pathway to produce and serve others and generate profits and pay taxes and all that. But talk a little bit about the stuff behind it. I see some good books, a coffee mug, a teddy bears, or how can we get a hold of one of those books if we wanted to? And it looks like there's 3 of them there.
Yeah, sure, Gary. So that one is our number one Amazon bestseller. That's the Rockstar Stories. There's 110 stories of business owners and entertainers, famous people. I'm in there. Are you in that? You're in that one, right?
I might be.
Yeah.
I mean, I found out I'm in some other books too, and I was like, "Holy cow! There's old Gary." Kind of neat. My mom would be proud, you know.
Yeah, it's a collection of stories and successes, and Les Brown's in there. It's, Craig Duswalt, some high income earners, 7-8 figure income earners in there. And then the next one over there is our Credit Matters. That's just recently released. That hit number 3 the same day that hit number 1. So I'm pretty excited about that. And that one's available on Amazon as well, and Kindle and book. You can just go to Amazon and look up my name, Pat Walley, PatWalley. Show right up. I believe the book is, I want to say $12.99. That's actually a blueprint on how to set up your business credit without super deep details. But if you follow that and you know how to dig up some information, you can set your business credit up pretty good. And then that other one, the bear, of course, that's my millionaire bear. He's kind of the mascot. When I travel, I sit him on the seat next to me, and we do some social media. That's my buddy. My friend Tony, who was going through some cancer therapy, gave that to me. So that's kind of a token. He said, "Here, you're going to have success." So he's still alive. I'm still working. So everything's good. The investor, the real estate investor book there, that's also stories of successful real estate investors. And I was interviewed for that book as well. That was a really fun time. And they're all available on Amazon. The Rockstar, the real estate, what is this? What it's called? Conversations with Top Real Estate Investors.
Okay.
Volume 4. So volume 4, if you go to Amazon and look that up, and all the proceeds for that investor book goes to a charity.
Awesome.
So
I like that. Okay.
There you go. Yeah.
So how can people? We can go to Amazon and get the books, but website, podcasts. I mean, people, I'm sure, are going to be, especially the people that own their own practice, like dentists, for example. This is like right up the rally, man. You know.
Absolutely. So we got the website, of course, and just a closing tip. If you're in business, you need to have a website because they're going to look up to see if you're legitimate and have a website.
Yeah.
DignityCreditSolutions.com. DignityCreditSolutions.com. Phone number is 877-777-0097.
Okay. 877-777-0097. Did I get that?
Correct. 877-777-0097. Yep. And Dignity Credit Solutions, we're doing some upgrades on our website. So see some exciting things. There's some free downloads there. You can schedule a free appointment. We do a 40-minute planning session. And there's a calendar link at the top. You just click on that and schedule an appointment at your convenience. So, yeah. Okay.
Well, listen, I think I speak for everybody when I say thanks from the bottom of my heart for taking. I know you're a busy guy, Pat. I appreciate you taking your valuable time to share your energy and your expertise and your knowledge in this field. And so we really do appreciate it. And for everybody listening, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. Real estate investing for professional men and women. Also go to the myinvestmentservices.com website and join the community. We're several thousand strong, investor side and of course agent side. We got the agents already trained to work with us, so might as well use them. They're certified. Always look for that. And Pat, maybe we'll be able to make you one of the vendors on that on the community site too. It's like a closed network, but I think you'd be a great resource there. You know, so thanks again for doing this, brother. Good to see you, and I appreciate you taking your time to do this. You know,
appreciate you too, Gary, and best of luck. Have a great close of the year and great 2020.
You too. Thank you, and everybody. God bless you and your families, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Bye bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Real Estate Investing for Professional Men and Women. Be sure to go to myinvestmentservices.com to join our community and start building wealth today.